Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. Today, Carrie and I are going to talk about a topic that comes up in our communities quite a bit, and that's really this fear of non-native EMF, sending kids back to school, going into an office. What do you say, Carrie? How are we going to start the conversation?
Well, I'll talk about how I used to be, right? Because when I first started diving into the world of non-native EMFs, which for people who haven't heard that before, that's sources of wireless energy, wireless radiation, such as Wi-Fi routers, things that emit Bluetooth. It's the energies that can come from appliances, right? In terms of their magnetic fields or their electric fields. And it's just an energetic frequency that's not in resonance for the most part with our bodies, right? It's kind of a disturbing frequency, a chaotic frequency that we can talk about the actual ramifications of what that looks like maybe on the cellular level at some point. But when I first heard about this, I thought to myself, well, crap, there's a cell phone tower. There's a cell phone tower. I distinctly remember driving down the highway and never having this awareness of these poles that were just randomly along the highway. Everywhere. And now being like, oh my gosh, there's like one every couple of miles. And then I remember as another year went by and I'm like, they don't just have ththese weird things on the top of them anymore. Now there's like 3 layers of them. And like, now there's who knows how many layers of them. Right. But like, I just, this fear, like it's everywhere, it's going to get us. And yeah, I'm not saying they're healthy, right? They're not biologically resonant. And so then I thought to myself, how can I shield myself from everything? What kind of canopy can I use? Like Faraday cage at night? What paint, right? What shielding paint can I paint on my walls or the windows or, like Faraday clothing, things like that. Like, what can I do to shield my body from this? And the more I kind of went into that fear-based route of like avoiding and shielding and, oh no, I started to build up more anxiety. It just was, I was not the healthiest version of myself in any capacity. And so I thought to myself, there's got to be a way that we can coexist with these frequencies that are not biologically resonant, but at the same time, not have fear, right? Love over fear. And that's because they're going to be there, right? There's organizations that are going to continue to put out these smart technologies, these wireless technologies. And so what can I do in my own home to just feel like I am being as supportive as possible? And so that's where I started to open up to the idea of things like harmonizing devices or what I can do to transform essentially the wave characteristics of these high frequency, non-native EMFs. How can I transform those waves, because that's what they are, into ones that my body would say are not threatening anymore? And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And that's where I'm at in terms of coaching people up. Yeah, I don't want to sleep with a cell phone on my body. I choose not to wear an Apple Watch. I make certain choices about maybe not exposing or limiting my exposure. I don't fear them anymore, though.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people go through that whole thing when they start to understand this information that we teach about water and looking at Dr. Pollack's work and how non-native EMF brings the water down 15 to 20%. And then we can go into like, Nick Penalt's information about EMF. And there's a lot of, you can really go far down this rabbit hole of what kind of negative things that EMF can do to your body. But then you have to also like be realistic. Like, are you going to move to the jungle, like off grid? And how much of this can you actually control? And even if you move to the jungle off grid, who's to say that they can't build a tower or a satellite there eventually? And so people go through this whole thing of like, I'm going to get a shielding canopy for my bed. I'm going to paint this. I'm going to do that. And I think it's a matter of like controlling the variables that you can. And some people are going to choose to maybe like not put their kids in a regular school for various reasons. Maybe even due to the high amount of non-native EMFs that the kids are going to experience in those environments, but that's not going to be realistic for people. Some people, like they have jobs they have to go to, or they have to be in an office. Their kids have to go to school because they have to work. Like we have to do a better job, I think, of meeting people where they are. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to address in this information is just the working parent who has to be in an office and they got to send their kid to a school where there's a lot of non-native EMF and technology. Like what can they do? And, the whole fear factor thing.
Yeah. It's a great question, right? This definitely did come up in my community. And so I would say, let's start with Nick's strategies, because I do think Nick teaches the most sound strategies when it comes to actually, using the devices. And that would be, he does 3Ds. It's like the distance of the device, right? So basically how close is that device to you? I've taught my kids, they know it's going to be very rare if my kids are using a device that emits non-native EMFs. They're not going to be like this. Right? They're not going to have it directly physically on their body. They're not going to be have it on their lap, right? Because it's like they understand that the device that they're using when it's in its wireless mode is emitting radiation. So why would we want radiation in our bodies? So then it becomes, how can I potentially use a device? I'll pull out my cell phone here. Right? How can I potentially use a device like this in a way that is emitting radiation, but isn't going to be as biologically impactful? Distance, right? Distance matters. Yeah. So that's where if you have a chance to like create a little station where you could set this up on something, and it's like, I can still scroll or watch a video or listen to something, but now I've distanced myself, 4 feet from the device. That's limiting my exposure to it. And so that's what I coach my kids. It's like, if at school you're given an iPad or a laptop, do not put it on your physical body. Okay. No. So there you go. Is it the best thing in the world that they would have access to those in the first place? No. What's wrong with the notebook? You and I had notebooks, right? We had teachers give us lectures and we took notes, but that's not the way of the world anymore. And so distance matters. And so does then the duration that one's using it. Yeah. And so I feel like, and sometimes I'm guilty as charged. I've done a lot better with this over the course of the past 2 years. I've made a very diligent effort at this. But when I was in the throes of what was going on, like trying to figure out what was going on with my own health challenges, I was on a cell phone all the time. Yeah. All the time. So I understand, right? It's like, what's wrong with me? What rabbit hole can I go down? Who has the answers for me, right? I remember that. And then even when I started to find all of this stuff from Dr. Cruz to Dr. Pollack to Maywan Ho to, earthing and grounding, all those things, like I was on it a ton. And there came a point probably about 5 years into this deep dive of stuff where I was just like, put the dang thing down. Yes, you could continue to learn more, but at this point in time, enough, you have enough tools in your toolbox to implement some really key strategies where you don't need to keep diving into what the latest and greatest new research is or whatever that is. And so I made a distinct effort and I switched to books, right? So instead of back in the day when I would go on vacation, I would bring my phone and I'd have all digital books. Here's my latest box. This is my latest vacation box of books. Oh, this is heavy. Because now I love taking a physical book with me, and somewhere it's like, if I need a break and I want to learn, I want to use that part of my brain, I'll take a book outside. There's nothing better than something like that. And so I'll print papers off that I want to read, like I'll just dive into it a little bit differently. So just different habits of how you choose to spend your time on the phone versus what do I typically do on the phone that I can do in an alternative way. Right? Yeah. How can I listen to a music or a podcast differently on airplane mode, maybe? Or how can I read or learn differently? Physical paper products. It just has been a conscious shift, and I feel the difference in my own energy field over the course of the past year.
Oh, definitely.
It definitely feels a lot better for me to not use my phone as much.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we all are going to have to use our phones to some extent, unless there's a way to not. I haven't seen that to be a possibility for most people. So for me, it's like don't hold the phone up to my head ever. It's always speakerphone. I try to set the phone down. I have these little pins that have the little thing on the end where you can use that to scroll. So I'm not ever having to hold my phone and touch it. I'm just like, psh, psh. And I do occasionally, obviously, because I do a lot of social media. I have to type stuff, but I might go on my computer, type it in notes, and then copy and paste it and put it as a caption, Right. If I'm going to be on my laptop, the Bluetooth is turned off and the laptop is hardwired. So I try to do little things like that. I try not to use my laptop plugged in to a power source if I can help it, because that's also going to up the EMF. So little things like that. And then I try to, if I'm going to be on my phone, go outside and stand in the grass in the sun, because that's also going to help to build exclusion zone water, pull electrons in. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of offset phone usage, not an excuse to just be addicted and glued to your phone all day. But I think the phone is worse than fretting and worrying about towers here, there, and everywhere, because those are just going to be, but you can control the proximity to which you are attached to your phone, how you choose to use it, and things like that. You never want to sleep with the phone plugged in to your charger next to your head while you're sleeping. I always, and I know I've said this multiple times on the show, but my husband and I have elderly parents that they may need to get a hold of us in the middle of the night. So the phone is in the bathroom, and we have a pretty big bedroom. We can still hear those phones just fine in the bathroom. If the ringer is to go off in the middle of the night, we can hear them just fine. So distance, the inverse square law, right?
Yeah. Well, and you also bring up Nick's third D, which I believe is downtime. It's do you have places where you are not being saturated? And sleep should be a space where there is a downtime away from the vast majority of non-native EMFs. Again, within reason. I had a great company come in and do an assessment of our house, and there was a particular area where it was you have to, paint it and rip up the carpet and put up these shielding curtains and things like that. And I thought to myself, at this moment in my life, that's going to be way more stress and way more fear-inducing than just doing what I can, unplugging things in this room, moving some furniture slightly so that it does shift and change my exposures. It just wasn't, and I feel good. I feel fine because I do prioritize the ways that we can actually bring our body back into harmony. So like you said, the effects of the non-native EMFs, what are they? Well, number one, it's an effect. I'm going to start here actually, because we're getting a little more woo with this stuff. It's an effect on my biofield, right? Yes. It's the effect on, I believe it's Beverly Rubik who has been doing that research showing that when we have a cell phone in our physical field and it's being in use, like it's ringing, it distorts the biofield, right? It changes how the energy is essentially flowing and manifesting in this field around us. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the videos online of a cell phone that has ants crawling on it. Have you seen those ones?
I haven't.
And then all of a sudden it rings and the ants just go in this crazy, all organized, crazy pattern. So there's an energy coming from the phone. It's wild, right? I should find it and put it up on my stories. But there's an energy coming from the phone that is being conveyed to these ants, right? These ants don't know how to answer a phone. They don't know it's ringing, right? That's not what they're responding to. They're responding to the energy emanating from the phone that's causing them to behave in a certain way. And so then think about how that's happening then in our field. We have energy that we're interacting with, and it creates what she's pretty much called distortions in our biofield. So number one. Number two, to our physical body, exposure to the non-native EMFs, like you said, it depletes our body's ability to make adequate exclusion zone water, right? It's almost like we can't form the exclusion zone water to the extent we need in the first place. Hence why we emphasize exclusion zone water almost as much as sunlight, or if not more, right? Because it's like, go out there, get your body in the sunlight exposure, get infrared exposure so you can maintain exclusion zone water in a world that is inherently going to make it harder to maintain it and hold on to, right? An inherently dehydrating environment, frankly. And then what else is happening? It's a stressor to the mitochondria. Right? If it's a stressor to the mitochondria, then we have to do things that can support mitochondrial health, which is all the stuff we talk about, from circadian rhythm exposure to light on the skin. So that's the red and the near infrared light that's very beneficial to the mitochondria. If the mitochondria are experiencing periods of added stress and oxidative stress, that's why you and I are fans of molecular hydrogen, right? We've actually seen a lot of great support utilizing different modalities of molecular hydrogen. But that's what these things are doing, right? They're impacting multiple levels of our body, from our field all the way to the water, to the physical aspect of our bodies. And so we want to make sure that we are doing things to support those areas that we know could be being impacted. And we've got a lot of tools in our circadian and quantum health toolbox that can support them. So again, not fear, balanced use. But I don't know about you, but like after school, we want to run around in the yard.
Outside. Oh yeah,
right?
Both kids.
Barefoot.
My son is like, he can't say a lot of words right now. He's only 22 months, but he says outside very clearly. He runs to the door and he says outside, outside. Like he wants to be outside all the time. I'm like, yes, that's fine. Like that's my daughter too. They want to be barefoot outside. I'm like, go. Yes, please. You know, that's so powerful for them.
Totally. Because the energy that we're getting from the trees and from nature and from, just the earth itself, it harmonizes our biofield, right? It brings good quality energy back into our biofield, and it brings good quality energy back into our bodies. The earthing provides that flow of electrons, it helps to reestablish exclusion zone water. So that's another one with this that I think that is underrated when it comes to, okay, I'm sending my kids to school and they are going to be around Wi-Fi all day, but I send my kids with the best quality water possible. Because I know that hydration acts as a Faraday shield for them as well.
Yeah, that's so huge, is the water. And I just did a little module in one of my programs about that, of like you can control the water that you drink, and that can actually help quite a bit if you have to be around a lot of blue light and around a lot of non-native EMF. That getting your family the most high quality water possible with minerals, hydrogen, all of that is going to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely will be, because that in and of itself, again, like that's what's being depleted. Because when the mitochondria get dysfunctional, that's what's being depleted is the water. When we're just around the Wi-Fi in general, that's what's being depleted. It's that water, and that water is everything, right? Being able to maintain it in its appropriate states is everything. Yep. And
I measured I've been playing around, like measuring all the different waters, like the hydrogen from the holy hydrogen versus the axiom versus the spring aqua. And because I know you have a spring aqua system too. And I didn't know the hydrogen from the spring aqua is like really good. And it stays in the glass for 12 hours at the same ppm.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's stabilized, dissolved. Yeah. It's therapeutic. It absolutely is very therapeutic. Good. It is. And even still though, I just find, and I will most definitely use that molecular hydrogen, that hydrogen rich water from the spring aqua frequently. But even then I still like to I'll do at least once a day. I'll super saturate a glass with a tablet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've been doing that. We've been swallowing the axiom tablets. We've been doing those too. And I definitely feel a difference with that. Yeah.
Interesting.
You didn't like those or no?
I've tried to notice the difference between that and the tablet. My body does better with a dissolved tablet. There's something that just feels more, and plus I take, 16 ounces of water, of good quality water.
Mhm.
And I typically do it first thing in the morning, it just feels like a good way to start the day. For me, that's probably the routine I'll stick with. My son, though, who is starting to play sport, some contact sports again, the issue with the hydrogen tablets with kids, as you know, is like, it does have a taste to it, right? They don't drink it fast enough. It's got a weird taste or a weird smell to it. And so the tablets I'm thinking of might be a good means of him to utilize on a regular basis.
That's why I've been using them with my daughter, because she won't, if I do the tablet in the water, she won't drink it. Or we, now we have, so I'm crazy. Like I'll take like a big jar and then I'll fill it with the spring aqua that's got structured mineral hydrogen. It's already saturated, but then I'll put my Axiom hydrogen wand in there because it'll do the whole glass. It'll fully saturate it in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, I don't know. They had a wand. What is this wand thing?
Well, it's how they make the hydrogen water. So like with the holy hydrogen, it's a canister. With the Axiom, it's a wand that you attach to the machine. It's the same attachment that you attach for inhalation. And the flow rate is like really, really, really fast. Like when you are breathing the hydrogen, you can feel it because it's like 600.
I was going to say, do you have the 600 one? Is that the one that you have? Yeah.
That thing is, I love it. It's so insane. But yeah, I'll like I'll do spring aqua and then I'll double saturate it. And then I'll put in some of Carolyn Dean's Remag, a drop
exactly
of that, a drop of Quinton. This is it. And then I'm like intention, love, stir. And then I also have been doing that and putting it in the blue bottles, the big blue bottle love.
Those
and then
great.
Like leaving those around the house too, because my family for some reason will drink those rather than out of my glass. So yeah, we have a whole thing with water here. So Carrie, what is the biggest thing you would say with people and red light therapy panels that doesn't get talked about a lot?
So many people talk about how inconvenient it is to kind of set them up. And sometimes they just want to put them directly on their body and you really can't because of the non-native EMFs.
Yeah, exactly. That is why we are both so excited that we have these little battery operated bond charge panels. You can put them right here on your skin and you're not going to be getting all that non-native EMF. You can set it up for your kids, put it right next to them, and you don't have to set them up in front of a big panel and make them sit 6 to 12 inches away, right?
Yeah. So like when my kids have stomach aches or things, that is my go-to. I pull out that panel, I lift up the shirt, I just set it on them, and they could still be reading, coloring, doing what they're doing while at the same time getting the red light therapy, like you said, in a very kid-friendly way.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of parents just even put them up on the ear when they have ear infections, earaches. It is just so, I'm just doing it here on my ear right now. It feels so good. So these are absolutely fantastic. You can use the code QuantumPod, all one word. There'll be a link down in the show notes to save on yours. And these are from Bond Charge. So if you are someone who just wants the convenience of a red light therapy panel, doesn't want to worry about non-native EMF, you can just put it right on your skin and get skin healing benefits as well as infrared that can penetrate through and actually provide some mitochondrial support as well. These are absolutely fantastic. So check the link out down in the show notes and use the code QuantumPod to save on yours.
My community was just like, they're just asking me like, well, what's the best magnesium? What's the best minerals? What's the best? And I'm like, look, there's a ton of companies out there that are amazing. Like there's companies there's companies that I don't even know of yet, right? That are making amazing products, but you got to go with what resonates with you. And what resonates with me is taking things through water, which is why I love my minerals through water. Like I love Carolyn's products. I love the Quinton, right? I love, I've been playing around a lot with those beam minerals. My body resonates so strongly with those beam minerals. Like I wasn't sure, but like they are phenomenal for me. And it's like all these ways are just, I look at it like the molecular hydrogen, like it's like I like to take my stuff through water, and that might just be me, right? It might not work for everyone, but for me it just feels so good and so nourishing to be able to have a means of doing that. So I will doctor up my water, even though I have a spring aqua system. I will totally doctor up my water. And when I know my body is in need of that magnesium, for example, from Dr. Carolyn Dean's Remag, when I taste it and it's just like it tastes so good, right? It's like
my husband loves it.
Sweet.
Like Yeah, that's what he was saying. Because he used to be like a bit like he was obsessed with Zevia. Like, oh, it was just like, why are you buying this crap and bringing it into my house? He would drink the Zevia sodas, which are like stevia made sodas. And so I started making this special water for him with Dr. Dean's magnesium, a little bit of Quinton, do this whole hydrogen process. And he'll like request it now. He's like, I don't even want soda. I don't want any other drinks. Like, this is like all I want to drink. And I'm like, yep, that's how you know it's like your body really needs it. And he, like, he really feels a big difference. Like, if we run out of water, he's like, can you make one of the waters? And yeah, we like, it's fun. And I don't know how you feel about pH and water, because I've been playing around with like testing the pH. Yeah. Because the spring aqua is a little bit more alkaline. It's usually around, when I test it, it's like a 9.0. And you don't want to go, according to Dr. Tyler's research, above like a 9.8. That's where you're kind of in the danger zone. But spring aqua will be around a 9.0, but my distilled water is like a little bit over 7. So sometimes I'll experiment with doing just distilled water and do all my minerals and do the hydrogen, and the pH stays right around that neutral place. So
does it change the taste when you use the distilled water? And like for your husband, when you do all that stuff, does it change the taste at all?
I can't tell a difference. I really can't tell a difference between a pH of like around a 7 and a pH of a 9. It's not a huge taste difference to me, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel different energetically. Maybe it's because the minerals and the hydrogen, but yeah, I've been playing around with both because I'm like, I don't know if we should always drink alkaline all the time. But it's not super high alkaline either.
The issues were with, I'm not going to mention any brand names, but there were some machines that were touting like their, 9.9 to 12 pH, right?
So dangerous. That's so dangerous.
Yeah. And I mean, in the long term, it really, long term, right. A glass here or there is not going to do a big deal, but like, it's one of those situations, and we've seen this, right? This happens to people, and we've seen this not just with water, but like, let's say a nutrition plan, for example, where it feels good to do it for a certain amount of time. And then it doesn't feel good anymore. And so, it's like, it's one of those things where every once in a while it might have a benefit, but in the long term, it can be too deranging to the microbiome, stomach acid, things like that.
What I've kind of understood is you don't want high pH water with a negative ORP unless the negative ORP is due to the hydrogen. If it's negative ORP and pH with no hydrogen, that's not good, because that can indicate the presence of heavy metals, of contaminants. Like, so it's good to know.
Well, it's why ORP, it's why anytime a company comes to me and they tout their water as being superior because of ORP, to me, that really doesn't,
How did it get the ORP? Like, how did you do that? Like, is it due to hydrogen? If it's due to hydrogen.
I've been playing around with my bottle top vortexer from MEA. Right. From Robert's company. So it's like this magnet, right? A very powerful magnet where you attach basically two of these bottles together, right? And you have a magnet in between, you fill the bottom one up with the water, and then you flip it and you swirl a little bit, and it creates this beautiful vortex. And as it passes through the magnet, this particular company, MEA Water by Robert Gourlay, that company, it puts a permanent negative charge in the water. So I took that with me on all of my travels because it's so easy to travel with that magnet. Yeah. Exactly. And so I'll get the best version of bottled water that I could find, and then just basically energize my water and improve my water that way. But when I test that with my ORP meter, the interesting thing about that permanent negative charge that Robert's products put in the water is I could take Spring Aqua's water beforehand and measure the ORP, and it'll measure a good negative 500, negative 6. It'll be a high quality ORP in terms of the amount of negative. But I'll put that same water immediately through Robert's Vortex. It's 4 times is how you're supposed to do it. And it strips the ORP, because the charge, the energetic quality doesn't necessarily come, like you said, from the ORP. You can put a charge into the water that's not measured via that. Yes. And you can artificially inflate the ORP with things like adding some sodium bicarbonate into your water or things like that. And so it's not the end all be all when it comes to a water measurement.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I like looking at something like Veda's freezing technique to actually see what's going on in the water. Which is, if you go onto Google now or one of the search engines and type in how to know if your water is structured, they actually do list that as one of the ways to test if water structure is looking.
No way.
Yeah. I was like shocked when I found that the other day. I was like, huh?
Google.
So yeah. Like,
because when I still Google exclusion zone water or easy water, the first article that pops up is always our first article is actually a published research article that's always a critical review, which does it's bunk. And then the second ones are like, what are those quack watch or whatever, snake oil. I also love, and people, it's like, there's ways to assess these things that, like you said, you can use a meter, but I love assessing things in multiple ways. So Veda's technique is great. Using your meters to kind of understand what's the pH, what's the molecular hydrogen in it, right? You can have a hydrogen meter, things like that. I still do my neutral pendulum too, right? Yeah. Because, this is more of the idea of like figuring out what you're, right. This is like the energetic. So it's like when something is causing your biofield to spin in a certain way that's strong, all of a sudden I could hold water and I could see if this water, is it going to strengthen my biofield, which it has a strengthening effect on my biofield, or is it going to cause my biofield to lose energy, right? And it's just, these are all things, I feel like stuff like this, Veda's freeze technique and things like this, everyone should be taught them. Because then you don't have to outsource a darn thing and you could start to figure out what works for you. Because what works for you and your environment and where your house is situated and what season you're in and what your body is going through and your past traumas, all those things, it's unique. It really, truly is unique. And you could start to tap into your own innate intelligence based on things like that. So,
yeah. I haven't even played with the pendulum. I bought it because my energy, I was just like, I need to like get into a more grounded place before I start doing that sort of thing. So I think I'm knock on glass wood something. I feel like I'm getting there to the point where I want to start playing with that, but it's all of that stuff. Like we are so quick to like protocol strategy. Give me the 10 bullet points. Give me the 5 steps I need to take. And it's
guru, right? Jumping from person to person. Exactly.
Practitioner to practitioner. And it's like, we see it in our communities, like, oh, they're in your community now. Like, it's okay. Like, I understand we're seeking and we're trying to find the information that resonates and works for us. But at a certain point, like you have to realize that you can't outsource your whole life to strangers that don't know how you grew up, where you live, like you said, your past traumas, like things that have happened and gone on in your life and how that's impacting your body on a cellular level. Like this level of like looking at the water and this emotional aspect, I think is so crucial. And if you spend your whole life like EMF is the boogeyman, EMF this, EMF that, then it is probably going to mess you up pretty bad. Yeah. But I choose not to live that way because I had a same situation. Building biologist came in, and this was like the week that my daughter, it was a year ago. We were in the ICU a year ago. It was one of the worst times of my life. And the building biologist was at my house the week before, told me I need to move the kids' rooms to the basement, told me I need to do all this other crazy stuff. And I was just like, and basically I need to move. And I was like, that's not going to work. And I had gotten the cosmic tower. The cosmic tower was sitting in the box. I hadn't opened it yet.
Sorry,
so I know. The cosmic tower's up now, and the kids go hang out with the cosmic tower now. But yeah, I just intuitively after that, I knew I was like, this is not going to be. I can't move my kids to the basement. I have to sleep close to them. Like it's just not going to work. This is not going to be the solution.
It's right. So it's a great profession, right? Because they do a lot to help people become aware of non-native EMFs because this is not a mainstream thing. I was just looking at Erin, Natural Minded Mama's one of her posts recently, and it was and things like, things I never thought I would do before she had her, experience with Ev. And it was, I never thought I would wear an Apple Watch before. And now I wanted to wear it at the hospital to get instant updates and know how he was doing. And it's like, sure, right. To each their own. I could totally understand.
If you literally have a baby on life support, which if people are not familiar, Erin She actually lives here in Georgia. She's a good friend of mine. And the Natural Minded Mama is her handle on Instagram. She had a baby that was born with a congenital defect and almost died. And the baby was on life support for multiple months. And that was her way of staying tuned in with the hospital, was to wear an Apple Watch that was constantly hooked into the baby's monitor. So she knew how he was doing. And she knew, like, this is not good for my health to have this on my body, but I need to know, how my baby's doing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make this girl feel bad about it. This is what she has to do as a mom. And so now she's not wearing the Apple Watch, and now she's got a beautiful piece of land up in the mountains, and they're, off, moving off grid, and like have this great, great life. And the baby's doing fantastic. And so, yeah, we can't be so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Black and white myopic, right? She uses the word gray a lot, right? There's nuance, there's situations, there's what I was saying with that post too, was that a lot of people responded underneath, like, I didn't even know wearing an Apple Watch wasn't
they had no idea.
Right. And so it's like, that's why we need building biologists. That's why we need people talking about this stuff, so that people become aware of their AirPods and their Apple Watch. And because it's not their phone, right? Because it's not biologically resonant with us, right? I mean, it really just isn't. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I really wish the building biologists would take that next step that goes from shielding to even understanding things through the lens of like biogeometry.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. Because there are absolute ways that people don't know biogeometry. That was started by a researcher from Egypt named Dr. Ibrahim Karim. And he actually showed through the various placement of geometrical shapes, you can change the spin to be biologically resonant of either a home. He did it in whole entire cities. Where like literally cities where they were noticing more mental health issues and more crime as they were putting up these cellular towers, essentially. And they had him come in and literally put geometrical shapes in key places throughout the city. And they had done a before and after snapshot of these items, right? The mental health challenges, hospitalizations, crimes in the city. And there was a significant reduction when he harmonized the energetic fields there. So this is a thing, right? And he's been teaching this, I don't know, for how I've known about it for about 10 years. He and now his daughter, and now also Robert Gilbert, right, who's one of his main students, have great courses on this. And it's like, I wish that building biology would also have that frame of mind as well.
Yeah,
it's like,
because a lot of them don't. A lot of them, and some of these like gurus in the quantum space are like, biogeometry is BS. It's crap. Harmonizing is BS. Because some of it is BS. Some of it is like a ripoff. But there is some legitimate, like the cosmic tower, biogeometry. That is legitimate. There is some evidence to show that does work and it can help people. So
totally. Listen,
I wish people would stop being so dismissive.
Well, that's the thing, right? I think healthy skepticism, but an open mind, right? I think those have to go hand in hand. If you just have an open mind about everything, you're going to get sold snake oil at some point. And if you're skeptical about everything, you're not going to necessarily have alternative solutions available to you that ultimately are not bunk like you think they are. Right? I think all of us have to have this beautiful, balance between those two things. And once I opened my mind up to the possibility that harmonizing was a thing, I mean, like, I literally purchased through the the Vesica Institute is where I take all my courses, but I literally purchased through their shop a specific crystal called Indigo Gabbro. And I know, like, you don't talk about this a ton, but I know you got crystals, and I know because of your yoga training, right? Like that
everywhere.
Right? Different crystals have different energies. And again, it's something that we don't put out a ton on social media, especially through the lens of quantum biology, because quantum biology is science. Then through the lens of science, we talk about harmonizing and we talk about crystals. But I wanted to test this for myself. So up north, I brought up north to our cottage where they have Wi-Fi on all the time, right? And I got a specific crystal called Indigo Gabbro that's known to transmute negative energies such as non-native EMFs. It's not the only version of negative energy, but such as that. And so I literally had me, my brother, my kids. It's like, okay, let me find your energy field, right? Okay, now go stand by the Wi-Fi router, and the energy field would reverse spin. Okay, now hold this stone in your pocket or put it in your pocket, and their spin would strengthen again. Right. So there are ways that we can support our bodies in terms of taking energies that were once detrimental to us and transforming the quality of them, transmuting them into something that's not as biologically harmful. And so that's where we need to go with this conversation. So if it was me and I wanted to maybe have my children maybe have a little bit of energetic protection, I'd stick one of those indigo gabbro stones in their pocket, in their backpack, right? But we can't. I can't go to the school and be like, you have to make sure my child's laptop is on airplane mode all the time. And
take off the Bluetooth.
Right. It's for me in my situation, that's not feasible. And people know that school knows how weird I am. Right. So they wouldn't, it wouldn't change necessarily that. Like I'm weird anyways, but I just can't do that. Right. It just doesn't feel right for me. But what other things can we do? And yes, harmonizing is a thing. It absolutely is a thing. But again, buyer beware, because I could just go ahead and pick up a rock out of my my yard and start selling those and tell people that they're harmonizing as well. And they don't have that same energetic quality to them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you do have to be wary and go with companies and sources. I always go word of mouth sources through you, Dr. Sarah, people I know.
Yeah.
I'm very, very cautious, like Cosmic Tower, because people will send me stuff all the time. What do you think about this? What do you think about I don't know. Never tried it. Don't know anything about it. I don't people literally send me stuff every day, or people in my community are posting things. I literally don't know.
Right.
I can't tell you, and they might have really good snazzy marketing. It could be great. It could be terrible, nothing, a waste of time and money. So yeah, you got to really research this stuff and go through word of mouth, people that say this is, helpful. It's funny, the crystals thing, my daughter's backpack is full of different crystals, and they were, because I put stuff in there for her, and they were like, what are all these? Did you know your daughter put a bunch of rocks in her backpack? I was like, oh no, that's fine. I did that. I've always put tourmaline and all kinds of stuff in her. And in my husband's car too, he found a bunch of crystals in the console. He's like, what? Why do you put all these rocks in my car? I'm like, just don't worry about it. It's fine. You're fine. I do that. I have a way of planting them all over the house. And the Dr. Sarah, we still keep finding stuff. Here's one.
What is she?
Pine cones wrapped in copper. I keep finding these. She hasn't been here since June, and I keep finding random stuff around my house, and I'm like, oh, I'll put it right back.
She's using nature basically to make a harmonizing device through the golden ratio of the pine cone, right? I mean, that's what she's trying to do. Interesting. That's so funny.
I know.
Well, yeah, that I would want to test with my pendulum. You got to mail that to me. But that being said, yeah, I just feel like in this conversation, and we're going to come back to this over and over again, fear, anger, and hatred are the worst. It's no way to live. It's wrecking it. Right. It absolutely is. And so if you can do things that mitigate your fear, and that's going to look different for different people. Perhaps some people still want an EMF canopy when they sleep. That's fine. But if you do things to mitigate your fear and then be reasonable with your usage, with your, exposures, then that's really what we can do right now. Right. That's really what we can do right now. And at the same time, I truly believe we just need to do a podcast on fear. We really do.
We do. Yeah.
Because there's so much about how that on so many levels of the body and our health and our fields, how that's just a destructive emotion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll write it down for our topic list, because I think it is something that, people, and a lot of it is a dysregulated nervous system, past trauma, lots of stuff that's happened in your life that has put you into this vibration. And that's what it is. It's an energy vibration. And it's not good for your health. I see a lot of it, and it gets the clicks, it gets the views, it gets the attention. But it makes people sick, and it prevents people from getting well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. And it actually, it prevents their bodies from being able to tap into that beautiful innate self-healing that it really can. It really, truly blocks that. So
yeah, it does.
Eliminate fear. Love
Eliminate
over fear. This is Alex's shirt, right? So I can't have credit for this.
I was actually going to wear mine today, but I love it.
Yeah. That's the message, right? Love over fear, compassion, and just note that fear really, truly is what we want to eliminate. That's going to be one of the most destructive things.
Yeah. So create distance where you can. Drink good, clean spring water with minerals. Find what resonates with you. Because that was another thing when Sarah was here. She would make water mixtures and I would like spit it out. I was like, that is disgusting. And then she would drink my water and think it was disgusting. Mm-hmm. And so like something she was making was resonating, working for her, and vice versa. And so like, yeah, it's a matter of resonance for you and not tuning into certain things and creating
throw a crystal in your pocket and
wrap up a pine cone with copper wire. My husband found some like strange like symbols and writing on a piece of paper folded up, and he was like, I just like left it in the place in the closet where it was, because I'm not sure what I was supposed to do with that, but like I just left it there.
I'm almost positive I know what she was potentially trying to do with that, but I'm not going to talk about it right now.
You thought I left my weird days behind when I quit teaching yoga, but I was only just getting started.
Yeah. When the first step into quantum feels very like logical and pragmatic and like this resonates. This just makes good logical sense. And then you're in it long enough and you go back into the weird and it still makes sense. And I love it.
Yeah. Then you start looking at Dan Winters and
right. Biogeometry and all the fun stuff that really actually makes a ton of sense. I just didn't have the open mind or the background to really appreciate it before.
Exactly. Well, we will continue the conversation with different topics. So stay tuned. And anything else you want to add to the conversation, Carrie?
No, I mean, I think that's my perspective in a nutshell about these non-native EMFs these days. And it has shifted and changed, and it's okay if you're wherever you're at, but do the best you can to eliminate that fear.
Exactly. I love it.